Good morning. I just got back from a 3-hour round trip to go get some frozen rodents, and on my way back through, I had to stop and pick up some roaches from the post office. There's actually 29,000 small roaches here, and I wanted to make a little video on why we buy and resell versus just producing everything ourselves and selling them. 29,000. That's a lot of roaches. I, of course, started breeding to feed our own snakes. There was no pet stores around here that sold live rodents. There was actually one in Boardman years before, but they had quit. And there was one in Austintown that did sell live rats and mice, but they were pretty expensive. So we produced our own rats and mice for a few months before we got into the bugs. But again, I've told this story before, we bred to feed our own snakes, and then we had leftover rats that there was just too many for the couple snakes that we had, so I listed them on Craigslist. Now, when I first met, actually my very first customer on Craigslist, he showed up and told me that he had about 200 snakes and that you cannot find any live rodents around here. So my goal was to produce enough rodents that I could sell him enough to feed his 200 snakes. Even though most of his ate frozen, I knew I could, freeze my own and move into that. But my big goal on top of that was also to save people money. Seeing the price that they sold them for in the pet stores, I just thought was ridiculous. Now, understandably, it was a different economy 6 years ago than it is now, and prices have definitely gone up a lot. We still sell for a lot cheaper than you'd find on at the pet stores, even though no pet stores around here sell live anymore. But my goal was to supply the best quality for the best price, and the goal was to produce everything that we sold. I never intended to buy feeders and just to flip them. But the more word got around that we had feeders for sale, the more and more customers that came to us, and we never, we never did any advertising at all until, I don't know, a year ago. And even truthfully, the advertising we did a year ago, I don't think we even got a single customer from that. All of our customers are from word of mouth and just people spreading the word and sharing our stuff online and on Facebook and telling their friends. But it got to the point where people started wanting more than we could produce. So I would buy rodents live and try to produce enough that I would, be able to sell to those people. And I did not like to buy and sell because I wanted to guarantee quality, and producing our own, I know that I could guarantee quality because we feed them the best food. We change their bedding. I mean, we clean their bedding every 3 days from the very beginning. Every enclosure, every tank, every tub got cleaned every 3 days when it comes to the rodents. Until we actually got a new watering system a couple years ago. At the time, when we first started going from tanks to racks, I was using these rabbit drinking valves, and they were super cheap. It was, I think we got 100 of them, plus it was 100 valves, 100 tees, and 100 springs. It was like $30 shipped on eBay. But when the rats drank out of it, so much would leak into their bedding, we had no choice but to clean their bedding every 3 days. But once I started buying the brass drinking valves, which actually at the time cost about $3 a piece, I realized that I can actually go sometimes 6 or 7 days in between cleaning, and even when I cleaned them, they were a lot cleaner than they were at 3 days with the old watering system because not so much water got into the bedding. But nowadays, with the amount of rats and rodents that we produce, we're cleaning almost every single day. We just clean what needs done. So I'm not exactly sure how quick we clean, but I think each enclosure is roughly every 4 to 6 days, depending on how messy they make it, depending on how many rodents they have. But anyway, buying and selling. I'd say about a year into breeding, we had rats, mice, and dubia roaches. I had just started breeding mealworms and superworms. For the first 10 months or so with the mealworms and superworms, we weren't selling too many, so I actually ended up selling our entire collection of worms, which was roughly 50,000 worms. I remember this girl drove 3 or 4 hours away to buy our entire mealworm and superworm breeding collection. But only about 6 months after I sold it, I actually started producing them again. But I had people that were coming to us that, they would come and buy their rats from us and their dubia roaches from us, and then they'd leave and go to the pet store to buy their crickets, or if I didn't have mealworms and superworms, they'd leave and go buy mealworms and superworms. And I started looking around, and I realized that I could buy mealworms or superworms online in bulk and keep them. I keep our worms in cans like this. I don't know how well you can see it in the camera there. But I realized that if I could buy them in bulk, say 10,000 mealworms at a time, I could sell them for almost double what we pay for them, and still offer them to you for half the price you're buying them from the pet store, because the pet store is outrageous. Now, even though at the time it was double what we paid for them, got to take into account that we feed them, give them bran and potatoes and carrots, plus cupping them up and the time it takes to do all of that. So our profit wasn't really doubling, but it was enough to keep us going, Well, a few months into breeding the rats, maybe before I even started with the dubia roaches, I met a guy that I actually started buying rodents from. His name is Brad McCarthy. He's in Butler, Pennsylvania. This guy actually became quite a good friend of mine. He has been breeding since the 70s. He is like an OG. If you go to Pittsburgh or anywhere in Pennsylvania in the reptile hobby, everybody knows this guy. But I started buying rodents from him, and at the time I was only buying live. And at the time I remember him telling me that he had 4,000 snakes. And I don't know if it was at the time where he just hatched a lot of babies or not. I don't know if he actually has that many or if I misheard him, but he has a lot. And if you've been to his house, you know that he has quite a lot. He has his hands into many different things, between ball pythons, white-lipped pythons, colubrids, just a lot of different stuff. But my big goal was I wanted to produce enough rodents that I could sell to him and be his source for feeders. So even though I've never sold him a single rodent, he was one of my big goals. Another thing is, we went around to a few pet stores, and I created a wholesale price sheet. I had to spend a lot of time doing the math on it and how much bulk someone would need to buy to pay the wholesale. And we went around to different pet stores and gave them our wholesale price sheet to try to sell to them. Just trying to spread the word that we breed and sell rodents. One pet store in particular, it was a mom and pop pet store. They called us not too long after we went and saw them, and they actually started buying rodents from us. Just within our first 2 years, we actually started selling to 3 different pet stores. Excuse me. And on top of what we were producing for ourselves and for the few local customers we had and the pet stores, we were just never able to meet the demand. So I had to continue buying rodents in order to sell and make everybody happy. After maybe 3 years total of being into it, I ended up stopping selling to the pet stores because I found myself running around like crazy, buying up as many rodents as I can just to meet the pet store's order. And of course, they're paying less because they're buying bulk. And then they'll resell it for a profit, and I'd make very little money because I had to buy them to resell them. I'd make very little profit doing it. So I ended up stopping selling to the pet stores. But still, even without the pet stores, we had so many customers that just had 1 or 2 snakes. We had a few breeders that had 50, 60, or 100 snakes. We just never have been able to keep up with demand. So we just kept buying as many rats as we can and holding on to as many rats as we can to reproduce. And we just kept growing. I was building rat racks every month. I'm building another rat rack and just expanding. Fast forward it now, 6 years after we started, we have, I can't remember how many rat racks total, but I want to say we're right around 28 to 30 racks, and each rack holds 5 to 6 tubs. One of our racks is a double slot, 2 tubs, and that one holds 16 tubs. So we have well over 1,000 breeders now, plus I think right around 70 or 80 mice colonies. Now, even though we did not sell to pet stores for a solid 2 years, we still could not meet the demand. And there's times that I used to drive to Columbus and buy, 200, 300, 400 live rats, and I'd go to Columbus about every 2 weeks just buying live, and I'd bring them back here. I'd keep some for breeding. I'd resell some. I'd freeze some and freeze our own rats and everything like that, but we could never meet the demand. Same with the roaches. We now have, I'm in the roach building right now. We have about 30 roach colonies, each with 1,000 breeders, roughly on average 1,000. And we're still buying 50, 60, 70,000 roaches a month because we just cannot meet the demand. Not only in our area, which we are the only feeder breeders around here, but nationwide, we sell bugs on our website, and there's just not enough bugs. And there's big companies that produce 2-3 million dubia per month, and you go on their website, and some of the sizes you can't even buy more than 100 at a time if you wanted to, because the demand is just outrageous. So, our goals are still the same, that we want to produce the best quality rodents, the best quality feeders at the best price for you guys. But the demand is just so much greater than the supply that we have no choice but to buy and resell a lot of what we do sell. I don't see nothing wrong with that, as long as I know that what I'm buying is good quality. And I only buy from people that have good quality, and I check them. And as an example, I have met breeders. I actually bought a rack or a enclosure off a guy a few years back. It told me the way he freezes, or the way he euthanizes his rats and freezes them, was he would grab them by their tail and swing them off the freezer and put them in the bags. So when you buy frozen rats off of him, they're all bloody and nasty. Not only that, but they're stained. Rats that were taken care of and that were that just had a good life in general are going to be clean. You're going to be able to see their colors clearly, even if it's just white. Their white fur should be white. If they're in such poor conditions that their fur is stained yellow or brown, that you cannot come off of that. You cannot, I have bought rats that were stained like that because of just the filth that they've lived into. And those rats I buy, and I might even keep them for breeding, 2, 3, 4, 6 months later, they're still stained. That urine and poop stains does not come out of the rats at all, and it's disgusting. And there's been times where our cleaning has gotten behind a day or 2 or 3 days, where our cleaning has gotten so bad I had to, hurry up and clean, or stay up late and clean enclosures, and our rats have never gotten stained. So when you see a rat that has got them nasty brown and yellow stains in them, you know that they have been kept in very filthy environments. And I don't like that, and that's why, I breed on my own, and I like to take good care of them, because, they're still animals. While they're alive, they're still animals, and they deserve to be treated well. Certain things I do not produce at all, like crickets. I personally hate crickets. They can bite your bearded dragon. They stink. They chirp. I don't like anything about crickets. Plus, there's not much meat on them for the animal. Dubia roaches are far more healthier to your bearded dragon or whatever you're feeding them. They got a higher protein, better fat content. There's more meat per bug. Plus, they do not die within a few days of buying them like a lot of crickets do. So, just to sum it up, that's why we do have to buy and sell some things. And like mealworms and superworms, for example, we do breed them on a very small scale. And I've tried to expand a few times. Problem is, my time is so, my plate is full, between cleaning rodents, cupping up bugs, sorting colonies of dubias, all the paperwork and computer stuff, running the website, shipping bugs. I personally do not have time to add anything to my plate. And it's been very difficult finding employees that can actually keep up with the flow of things. There is not a tremendous amount of profit in this business. If you are a feeder breeder and you can go full scale producing everything yourself and selling everything, only what you produce, there will be a good profit. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time to get to that. But there's so much work and time spent actually doing the work and cleaning and feeding and cupping and all of that, that it really takes, you really have to sell thousands of rodents and hundreds of thousands of bugs for it to be a sustainable income, to be your sole income. Over the last 3 years, there have been times where, one, my wife worked a full-time job for the first 5 years of this business. A few times I have worked 2 to 3 part-time jobs while I'm doing this. And I remember one time I want to say it was like 4 or 5 months, I drove for Amazon, and I was away for 10 or 12 hours at a time. I woke up at 10 p.m. and I would drive to pick up my truck, and I'd drive to Pittsburgh and get my load, and then drive all the way down to Maryland and deliver to the post offices. By the time I made it home, sometimes it was 10 o'clock in the morning, sometimes it was noon. I would go in where the rats are and I would clean all the cages by myself, and I'd help as many customers as I could. And then at 5 p.m. I would go to sleep and then sleep till 10 p.m. and wake up and drive all night again. And then during the same time, I actually delivered newspapers once a week. That was only about 4 hours at a time. But it was extra money, and it helped us to make more money to put into the business to try to grow this business. As of today, me and my wife are the only 2 full-time employees, and we have 1 part-time employee, and we're trying to bring in more. But like I said, it takes a lot to train somebody and to train him efficiently and effectively. It's a lot. But anyway, I just wanted to explain that to you, why that we went from wanting to produce all of our own feeders by ourselves in-house to buying and selling. One thing too, I told you I was on a 3-hour round trip this morning. Yesterday I made a post that we were out of live and frozen rats. We have a lot of mice, but we were really, really low on rodents. And I know on Wednesday I could go and pick up another 400 live rodents plus frozen, but I really wasn't sure if I was able to get some today. Well, I ended up waking up at about 5 o'clock this morning, making a 3-hour round trip to go buy, I don't know how many, but it was like $750 worth of frozen rats, just to bring back to fill one particular order this morning, and then just to have some for the local people to feed your snakes. Once you take into account the gas money and my time to go get them and then to resell them, there's really not much profit on top of that. But I do it because I try to save you money, and I want to make sure your animals are fed. Once I have a customer, I take a personal responsibility that, it's my responsibility to make sure your animals get fed. As long as you're willing to drive here and come and buy these rodents, I take a personal responsibility in trying to make sure that we always have the rodents for you. It's hard to do, and I'm not complaining. I feel very blessed to be in the position I am. there's been a lot of hard work in the last 6 years, and I have really busted my ass to create this. And I've honestly thought about quitting a few times just because of the amount of work and the amount of stress that comes with it. But I've pushed through, and now I'm at the point where, you know, quitting isn't even an option, because we are literally the only feeder breeders in Northeast Ohio. And if I were to quit, you're talking hundreds of people that aren't going to be able to feed their reptiles anymore. They're going to have to either make that, you know, 3-hour round trip drive themselves. They're going to have to buy frozen online and pay that $35 to have them shipped to their door. Or they're going to have to go to reptile shows once a month, or find their own breeders that breed their own live, because the pet stores don't sell them anymore. You know, I don't have it in me to do anybody dirty like that. Not only that, but, you know, 300 or 400 of you. So, you know, I take it to heart. I want to make sure that I always have what you need. Sometimes we might not have the right sizes or the right quantities, but your snakes are not going to go hungry when you buy from us, because I make it my, you know, it's my mission to make sure that you guys have the feeders you need. Unfortunately, that means I have to buy a lot of those feeders, but at least the animals are eating, and at least you have a good supplier that you know is going to make those 3-hour round trips when times are tough, and when rodents get low or when bugs get low. I know where to get them in large quantities to be able to sell you 100 at a time for half the price of the pet store. You know, so hey, hope you liked the video. Like it, leave a comment. I'll talk to you next time. Good morning, Feeder Farm fam. One thing I'd like to add, a few people have messaged me saying that they watched me on YouTube. That's how they found me. I just want to say that I really appreciate you taking the time to send me a message. Thank you for ordering from us, and I'd love to hear how you liked your order. A couple of you I sent some extras to, but please feel free to give us a review and share the videos, of course. As far as YouTube goes, I'm not sure. You know, I'm not in this to try to become the next big YouTuber. I just feel like I have a lot of information that I could share, and I'd love to share if I'm able to help people either breed their own feeders or breed their own ball pythons, or just anything I know and can teach people. I'd love to help with as much as I can. However, one thing I was thinking about, I do a lot of giveaways locally and through our emails and just stuff on Facebook. I've not done a YouTube giveaway yet, or any special coupons or anything. So if you see this video and if you've watched all the way until now, go to our website anytime you need some bugs and use coupon code YouTube in all caps, and I'm giving you 15% off your entire order. This coupon is going to be good for the rest of the year, but you can only use one per person. So if you like the videos, if you watch the videos, go save 15%. Even if it's the only time you order from us, at least you got to save that much. With that, I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you in the next video.